few years back, um, I was in a really good place. I had been baptized and professed my faith with God, and was feeling good, obviously feeling amazing about that. And I was getting closer with God, and I was praying and meeting Him. And I asked Him, I said, will you mold me into the man that you want me to be? And He said yes. And then in my mind, that was going to go differently. I also believe around that time the devil said, I bet I can throw some stuff in here too. And as God started molding me, um, I believe that the devil decided that this was a good time for anxiety and fear to come in. And really, without a whole lot of explanation, I started having irrational thoughts, um, and being just afraid of all different kinds of things, hearing the health of other people and wondering about my own health, and seeing what happen to someone with their financial situation, whatever it might be. And I can just and the next thing I know, I'm afraid of those types of things and spiraling in those things, and I have no idea what's going on, but I can feel this change taking place in me. And I knew something wasn't right. I was asking my small groups for prayer. I was asking for help. I was going to the front asking, and really just a loss for why it was happening, and exactly what it was. And through prayer and through guidance, godly counsel, I really felt like I put a fingerprint on that it was me not willing to give up control.
So from a young age, about 10 or 11, I started to deal with depression. Um, my thoughts were filled with shame and guilt just over being who I was as a person. And I hated myself for a really long time and had thoughts of ending my life. I thought that ending my life would make it all go away. And that's, what I thought about most of the time, honestly. And there were a couple attempts to end my life. But then when I was 17, my best friend led me to know Jesus and my life was changed. However, I was naive and young and new to knowing the Lord. And I thought that knowing Him and loving Him would make my life just instantly easy and that I would be healed from depression and all my problems would go away. But the Lord ended up walking me through a really long and painful process of healing, which I can say I'm thankful for now. But at the time, it was just so hard. And around the age of 24, the Lord led me to a counselor who led me to a diagnosis of PMDD, which was actually the basis of the depression and suicidal thoughts. And I was still just begging for healing, praying for healing. But the Lord was allowing me to walk through some, dark times in order to get me into the light and bring me into healing that was undeniably Him. And then Joseph got sick with COVID, and I was pretty isolated from coworkers and friends and from Joseph. And I ended up falling into like the worst depression I've ever experienced. I didn't eat for 2 days. Um, I was making some pretty serious plans to end my life, and Joseph was pretty scared. It was honestly really devastating. It was hard for both of us, but Joseph stayed strong. The Lord was always there, even though I was ignoring Him at the time. I knew He was there, and I went into this season of just not talking to Jesus, not listening to worship music, not listening to my Bible for a few months.
In the fall of 2020, I had our youngest daughter, and she came during a pandemic, during a really isolated, scary time for everybody. And I also had two other boys who were all three. I had three kids, 3 and under. And so it was a lot to deal with. And shortly after I had her, I was diagnosed with postpartum depression and anxiety and was put on medication to help with those symptoms and the things that I was feeling. But then earlier this year in 2024, I had felt those symptoms coming back up. I was taking the highest dosage of my medication already, and it was to the point when it was, okay, what else do we need to look at different medication? What other options are there? I had also gotten into therapy, so that was helping, but it felt like everything was just ramping back up. My anxiety and my depression was really taking control of my life. My kids and my husband really took the brunt of that anxiety and depression that I had. My marriage was the worst it had been, and it was getting worse and worse. It came to a head this summer, and it was at a point that I was ready to just walk away from this life that I had, walk away from my kids, walk away from my husband, um, because I felt like they deserved more than what I was able to give them.
As I started to do this, I could start to look back over the time period, and again, this is over a couple of years. So I was able to start to reflect on some different things. And as I was seeing what had happened and what had taken place, I could see where God's fingerprints were all over this story. Where I was when I was struggling and really didn't want to go do something or be present where I was needed. He got me there. He grabbed me by the hand and pulled me along. I did have a lot of sleepless nights, and so having to get up the next morning, that was such a struggle to go to work and to do my job and to be present in my job. And looking back, I realized that God was giving me a supernatural energy that that I needed at that time to get me to that word, to get me to that place where I could be the best version of myself, with what was going on the inside, and then what was actually coming out. Um, I mean, looking back, the only explanation is that God was there and pulling me along and giving me the words that I needed, giving me the energy that I needed, giving me the happiness and joy that I needed so that I could make it through.
And in May of 2022, the church we were attending at the time, there was a breakthrough of the Spirit, a breakout of the Spirit, and I got hit and fell to the floor after some people I love were praying over me, and I knew He was healing me. I knew He was working on me. And after that day, I didn't feel depressed at all. Like I didn't have any suicidal thoughts. My mind was clear and filled with hope and like life. And I felt like I loved myself for the first time in forever. It was a miracle. And I was so thankful to Jesus for just taking that away from me. But then, all of a sudden it felt like I had suicidal thoughts again and felt really depressed. And that made me really angry at Jesus. I was just so mad and fell away from him because of how hard it hit me and how unexpectedly it hit me. And I came to this conclusion for some reason that he was not real. God's not real because God heals and he healed me, but now I'm actually not healed. And so that means God doesn't heal. And so he doesn't exist, which is just so stupid. I was being really dumb. But the enemy was attacking me big time. And I ended up having this like spiritual amnesia where I forgot literally everything that the Lord had done for me. Every miracle, every experience I'd had with him, I just totally forgot all of it. And it was like I was starting from scratch, because I came to this realization that I my belief in Jesus hinged completely on healing. It was all that I cared about in the end. It wasn't about Jesus. It was just about that. Like, what can Jesus do for me? And I didn't realize that, walking through this, but it was like that moment I realized I'm on this foundation of sand and it's getting washed away from me and I'm working so hard to scoop it back towards me and just keep this foundation, healing, healing, healing. It's all I want, but I couldn't do that anymore. It got to a point where I just couldn't keep working so hard for my healing and I had to stand on this rock that is Jesus instead and realize like it's not about, what I'm doing and how I can hold on to my healing and what I can do to get my healing. It's Jesus and my relationship with him as a person and how he walks us through these things and how he walked me through this.
So, at the end of July, we were going on a staff conference to Texas. The first night we were there, they were praying for depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts. When they were doing that, I just walked away. I went to the bathroom. I didn't want to be called out for what I was feeling, what was happening inside. But I knew God was telling me that this was for you. And at that time, I go, God, if you want me to continue to stay, I need to see you. I need you to come and take this pain away from me. The next day, we came back to the conference, and I was just praying, like, God, please. I just remember standing there, like, God, please come. I need you. And I had this feeling that I had never felt before just wash over me. And the things that were happening inside of me, physically to me, it had to have been the Holy Spirit. It had to be God. It legitimately felt like things were just kind of clicking back into place. Things that were so far out of alignment were just coming back into place. It was days on end that my body was just having this reaction to God moving within me.
Fortunately, I had surrounded myself with amazing people. Um, I had great small groups that were praying for me. And then on top of all that, I had a prayer warrior in my wife that never stopped. And she continued to pray for me daily. She continued to send me devotionals. She continued to make sure that I was taking time to meet God where He wanted to meet. I would go up front for prayer, and someone would give me a word that that could only have been from the Holy Spirit, could only have been from Him, uh, because there's no way, whatever the prophetic word was that was spoken, there was no way that person had any idea that that's what I needed to hear at that time. I realized God was right there. He was listening, and He was telling me everything was going to be okay. And when I could feel that anxiety come down on top of me, I knew what I needed to do. I knew I needed to give to Him. But there were still times when we were meeting in our small groups, or when we were having leadership meetings and praying over each other, the things that were going through my mind, and then all of a sudden, the prayers being prayed over me matched what I was battling, what I was going through. And again, there's no other explanation than God being right there, saying, "I got you." Um, this is not going to be an easy fix. I don't want this to be an easy fix. I am answering your prayer of being molded into the man that I want you to be, and this is what it takes. He is taking something that felt so bad, that was so exhausting, with the late nights with little sleep, and again the not being present, and the um, feeling the effects that I could tell was taking effect on my family. Yet God was always there, helping me, shaping me, and pulling me through, guiding me, and I believe turning me into the person that I am today. I guess my prayer for this testimony is, as you understand that it's not complete, that it may help someone understand that it's not a quick fix. It's not a light switch. It is definitely a process, but in that process, God's going to be every step of the way. My prayer is that this will help someone else that is going through maybe something similar.
As I was walking through all of this, Joseph felt like the Lord was moving us somewhere new. He was pulling us out of that church. And I was in a place where I just couldn't help make that decision at all. So Joseph was like, all right, we're going to go to New Wine. So we had started calling New Wine home in October of 2023. And at this time, I was still walking through this deconstruction of my faith. And I feel like New Wine was just the perfect place to do that. And then one Sunday at New Wine, I got knocked out in the spirit, and I knew that the Lord was working on me. And he broke off a lot as I laid there on the floor, and I just said yes all over again to him. And he, ever since then, he's been honoring my yes, and he honors my yes every time. He's given me a lot of people in my life that have loved me and walked through this healing with me when I thought that I was unworthy of being loved. I wasn't a person capable of being loved, but he continues to prove that wrong through him and through other people. And the enemy continues to try and use depression as a weapon against me. But and it sucks. It's annoying to feel that creeping in, but I know it for what it really is now. It's a lie. It's so obvious that he's there, and I can't deny him anymore. His love is powerful and available to all of us. You just have to say yes.
August was a really hard month for me, for my friends, for my family, for my kids. But during all of this time, I had peace, that I came back from the conference with that I hadn't had in years. The past me would have just shut down. I would have just walked away. It would have taken over me. But I was able to stand firm in my faith because what God had been doing in me. And during that month, there was restoration in my marriage. We started laughing together again. We started to enjoy being with each other. And my kids, I started taking joy in being with them again. Now, stepping out of this summer, the kids are back. Our life is just back to this place where I want to be involved. I want to do the things with my kids. I feel like they are getting a better me. They are getting more of the mom that they deserved. That my husband is getting the wife that he married. I am off my medication now. During that time, I just said, God, I don't want to be reliant on this medication to give me this peace. I want it to be you, because even the peace I thought I had with the medication, it wasn't true peace. That true peace only came from God. And so I've been off my medication now, and I'm just enjoying being in life every day and knowing that God is the one who sustains that. And if you're walking through a really dark time, just know that God is there, that God has always been there, and He wants to give you that freedom. He wants to break those chains away.